So recently, Chris Watts made the news again. This piece of shit screaming, I'm in fear for my life. Oh, I don't know what to do. So I reached out to a friend of mine who's very close to the prison he's at, and he gave me a rundown of what's going on with Chris Watts. Now, first, you have to understand that the more safe and secured a prison is, the more dangerous it is. So they have all the high, notorious piece of shit chomos with all these high cases, just rats and just pedophiles that have to be put away for their own protection, serial killers. But they're also housing shot callers, the most violent, unmanageable inmates in the state. People who call the shots on the streets and in prison. They're all mixed together. And then you have the COs who have the most violent, unmanageable inmates, some of the highest ranking, most notorious gang members in the state. And then you got the trash, pedophile, chomo piece of shits like Chris Watts, who killed his 2 little girls, his wife who was pregnant. And if you think for a second, a CO who's getting disrespected every day and he goes to work can get money, whatever he might be into, women, they have so many ways to show him a life that he never knew existed. And also, while he's bringing in whatever they want him to, all that disrespect stops because the shot callers say, look, he's with us. Until he fucks up or he's no good, leave him alone. Then you have the straight sadistic COs that all you gotta do is go to Google and look them up, that literally go out of their way to get inmates like Chris Watts or even people, non-violent drug offenders that are doing like 1 year, put in with the worst of the worst to get killed because of a little disrespect. They got a power trip. It's a coward with power. And then, like I always say, time doesn't exist in prison, only opportunity. That's the recipe for disaster, or some might say for success. So a friend of mine who's close to the prison that Chris Watts is in tells me that he is going through it. In the beginning, they were extorting him, getting his true crime memorabilia, just completely having all his little followers and minions just bringing whatever they wanted in. Well, eventually, that stops. Time goes on and people don't want to keep doing that shit. They don't really care about that shit. Like I said so many times before, when his name dies, he dies. Not necessarily physically, but when he can't reach out to the media and have 20 people lined up to interview him, when his mom isn't recording things, everyone's trying to hear everything or what's going on here, that's when he's begging to get more media attention because he knows that without the media, there is no saving him. Because if something happens to him when the whole world's watching, it fucks up the money. People are getting transferred, people are getting fired. It just fucks up everything. So they rather extort, constantly put that pressure on him. And then once enough time has gone by, he gets exactly what many people think he deserves. So what my friend told me is he wrote to a media outlet, his family or whatnot, saying he's in fear for his life, trying to get out of there because every day they're fucking with his food. They're poisoning his shit, throwing piss in his face. And he knows from what he's seen in that prison that doors get open all the time. People in medical are waiting for you all the time. He's getting called to medical and he's not even putting in requests to go. He's no good anymore. He's no good to the organizations. He's no good to the media. The only thing he's good for is the victim's revenge. A CO can just take that trash out. Imagine being surrounded by that type of piece of shit, knowing just one click of a button, one gassed up inmate and it's a wrap. Then you have inmates that want to get that badge of honor and be the one that took out that piece of shit. You got the victims that don't forget, friends of the victims, family members, everything you can think of. They're the ones that don't forget. So while he's trying to get a little attention, no one really gives a fuck. They're like, bro, we don't care. You killed your family. You're a piece of shit. There's been enough documentaries about you. We've heard enough about you. You got to go do your time. He told me he's in the cell pacing back and forth. They open up the flap, piss thrown in his face. They say they got a bounty on his head anywhere he goes. And he knows he can't say who or why because he involved his family. This is dark shit of prison, but this is the reality. When you do dark, evil, sadistic crimes, you bring your family into it also. When you hurt women and children in sick, sadistic ways, like I say all the time, it's unfair, but it's the reality. The same way you guys say, oh, well, if you do the crime, do the time. Well, that goes for you sick, sadistic motherfuckers who hurt women and children. Unfortunately, When you dark shit like that, now your family's a target, your friends, anybody who associates with you. Because the more pressure they can apply on you, the better it is. Some dudes will just hit you up and write a book about it and be the guy that took out Chris Watts and make money for their family on the outside. They don't give a fuck. Some people will take it as a hit and just completely, organize something, and it could take 10 years for it to happen. But they squeeze and squeeze until there's nothing left. And just one day, like with Billy Chamarmar, the guy from Texas who killed those 20 elderly women, 20 years after he killed all those people, he was stabbed to death, beat to death in his cell. Whitey Bulger killed all those people, notorious rat, snitch, had some fucked up chomo allegations, walked right into a prison, beat to death in a wheelchair. They were waiting on him, popped his eyeball out. And that was 20 years after he went on the run. He got put in. So that just shows you people never forget. It's a sick, twisted world in there. He's crying about his safety. What about those baby girls? What about your wife? What about the baby that was inside that didn't even have a chance to even experience life? You do that dark stuff and your life becomes closer and closer. The walls start caving in until there's only one way out. Nobody wants to hear a grown man that killed their entire family cry about not being safe. There's only one thing they want to hear. So at the end of the day, my friend told me he's just getting tortured. The CEOs are spitting in his food, basically telling him it's almost time for you, brother. No matter where he goes, no matter what prison, it's all the same. And that's for anybody, whether it's a year, 20 years, like I always say, it doesn't matter. You bring your family into it. When you hurt women and children, you bring your friends and everybody else. And in the whole time, you're in constant pressure, constantly being extorted, having your food spit in, just death threats, always knowing that door might open by accident or that blind spot might be there. Just like that Dr. Nassar. He was in protective custody. He was acting real brave. He got put in a blind spot by accident, stabbed 23 times. People don't let that shit slide when you're a sick, demonic motherfucker. And this isn't to say, oh, such an honorable inmate. No. There's some people that belong in prison. But when you hurt women and children, it does something to a man. When you see that type of evil, when you see that motherfucker and you're missing your family and your children, and you think about the terror that poor woman and those kids all went through, and it's just like whatever it takes. And that's his reality. His food is spit in, pissed in, jizzed in. They're trying to poke him with dirty needles, just the most horrendous shit, day in and day out. His family extorted, friends extorted. Every time he looks out his cell window, people are screaming death threats at him, letting him know, oh, you just ate my fucking shit. Cell crying, my friend told me. And then 10 years, 20 years, we know how this story ends. Stop hurting our women and children. Stay out, stay free. Us.